Welcome back to ESBR Boxing's YouTube channel. Delighted, as always, to be joined by Niall O'Connell. We have just seen what many would call a robbery in New York tonight. Ireland's Sean McComb has lost to Arnold Barboza Jr., who stays undefeated. Now I'll just read out the scorecards before we get going. 98-92 to McComb, which I think a lot of people would see as a fair scorecard. I think Chris Mannix had something similar. And the other two judges had it 96-94 Barboza and 97-93 Barboza. Give us your thoughts on those scorecards just to get us started.
Yeah, I'll try to be as unbiased as I can, but I think it's fair to say that that was an absolute robbery. To be honest, in the eyes of most people, it was a robbery. Personally, I had it 98-92 McComb. I thought that was a good scorecard, even a little bit closer maybe, but there's no way Barboza won that fight. For me and for a lot of people, we were speaking briefly off camera there, and you said yourself, I think he knew himself that he didn't win that fight. I thought McComb schooled him, to be honest, for most of it. He just boxed rings around him, and I knew it was always going to be tough for him to get a decision in America, but it's a stinker, that one for me. Yeah, it's absolute robbery.
Yeah, I think it's a blatant loss for Barboza. He didn't win the rounds, was getting outboxed by McComb, wasn't connecting enough, and he lost the fight. Yet two judges have had him winning it. One judge has only awarded Sean McComb 3 rounds. It's a strange one because I just feel like we all know, even the commentators, to be fair to them on the DAZN broadcast, were being honest and saying Barboza's got away with one there. You wouldn't kind of have that sort of honesty everywhere in the world. Um, so it's disappointing. Um, However, credit to Sean McComb. I think a lot of people thought he was going to get stopped in this fight, despite the fact that Barboza is not a massive puncher. That was the expectation here. Um, Moving on to what actually happened in the fight, Niall. What was your give us your kind of verdict on what went down in New York this evening over 10 rounds?
I thought McComb boxed brilliantly.
Mm.
He put his shots together well, worked off the angles beautifully. He was sharp on his feet, worked the jab well. Even when it was in close, I thought he slipped shots well, and he held his own in close as well for such a big man. Like he's never been the biggest puncher. You can see like he doesn't sit down on his shots. He has that real amateur style still where it's point score and he's up on his feet. He's using the angles, but even still, Barboza, what he did land, you mentioned he's not a big puncher. The shots he did land couldn't put a dent in McComb like throughout. I thought before the fight, I thought McComb was going to be stopped late as well, to be honest with you. But yeah, Barboza had nothing for him. He couldn't even put a dent in him. As the commentary alluded to, he carried his chin so high, McComb, and still Barboza couldn't clip him or rock him significantly at all. So I thought McComb, it was a real good boxing performance, and as I say, he kind of skilled him there, really. Yeah, he skilled him for me.
Yeah, for sure. I think yeah, it's a strange one because that was the best performance of Sean McComb's career in the biggest fight of his career so far. Yet he's not won, so I'm sure it's a bit of a sickener at the moment. I hate to say this, but I now think Sean McComb will go into the who needs him club. A lot of people will see
Yeah.
how what he did tonight, how elusive he was, how rangy he is, how tricky he is, and won't want to fight him. So I'm now kind of concerned about the next year or so of his career, if I'm being honest, because I don't see him landing a big fight. If I'm honest, I hope I'm wrong. Um, but yeah, I don't know if you agree with that or not. What do you think lies next for Sean McComb now?
I think you're totally right, to be honest. And I was thinking that during the fight. I don't think anyone's gonna want anything to do with him, really. They're not gonna make the same mistake Barboza made in kind of picking him and overlooking him on the road to bigger fights. He's just a nightmare. Big, big for the weight. rangy, real clever boxer, so hard to pin down, and that nobody's gonna want to go near him. Even I think even if he won that fight, to be honest with you, no kind of champions would want to go near him either. So yeah, I do think the performance, as good as it was, is to his detriment there, really, in terms of his future kind of plans. But I just hope he gets a big fight because he deserves it after that. He's well warranted to get a big fight. I just can't believe it was the same fighter. Like my judgment coming into this was clouded because of Gavin Gwynn fight. I couldn't get that out of my head. It's hard to
Yeah.
believe it's the same fighter. Like it was stopped and quit really against Gavin Gwynn. That was clouding my judgment to say Barboza was gonna win, but he looked great against Sam Maxwell in December, and he looked even better tonight. So, yeah, I hope he can push it on now. But I have to agree with you. He's going to be high risk, low reward.
Yeah, look, we'll see. Look, Sean McComb's given us time over the years, which we always really appreciated. Think he's a really nice guy, and he's shown what he's capable of tonight. And fingers crossed we're wrong, and um, he kind of maybe gets another big fight in America later this year. We'll finish off with Arnold Barboza Jr. Now, I think one thing I want to make clear is it's not his fault that he won the fight, if that makes sense. He's not a judge himself. So I don't kind of it's not nothing against him. I just feel like we both feel like he shouldn't be have had his hand raised tonight. I think my when you look at the fact he's now 30 and 0, and most boxing fans wouldn't recognize many names on his resume. And I didn't realize he's actually 32 years old. I thought he was kind of 4 or 5 years younger than that. I can't help but think that he does have a padded record, and maybe he's not that as good as people think he is, as we've seen tonight. He is ranked number one with the WBO. Um, the WBO world champion is Teofimo Lopez, someone else who arguably lost their last fight. Um, Lopez, I don't think has anything lined up at the moment. He last fought in February. Um, what could happen in a fight between Teofimo Lopez and Barboza Jr. now? Lopez, we don't know which Lopez would turn up, and we've just possibly seen Barboza kind of quite clearly lose a fight. What could happen in that fight?
I do think, first of all, I agree with what you said. His record does leave a lot to be desired. I know he's unbeaten for a reason up to now, but at his age and 29 and now, there's not many standout names there. But I do think it'll be Teofimo Lopez next for Arnold Barboza. I think it has to be a big fight like that. And I think Teofimo Lopez will beat him comfortably, to be honest. If Teofimo Lopez is near his best, he'd beat Barboza. I do think Barboza is, as I mentioned, he's maybe a little bit kind of overrated, if that's the word, but he's decent. But I think Lopez is just on a different level. As we mentioned before, though, with Teofimo Lopez, he flatters to deceive when he's expected to win. So who knows what could happen there? But I just think Lopez anywhere near his best, it beat Arnold Barboza. Probably late stoppage, I'd say. He might get him out of there, but if not, wide points win for me. But I do think we'll see it next.
Yeah, we shall see. We shall see. Niall, good to speak to you. Thank you for doing this call. I know it's not easy when you've just seen your countryman kind of get robbed, but we will move on to the main event and I will speak to you again soon. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Take care.